Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Alan Wake 2, the Night Springs expansion. I played on the Xbox Series X, it's also available on the Series S, PS5, and PC. So this expansion focuses more on the Night Springs element than the Alan Wake element, which actually fits the Alan Wake element, interestingly enough. But really, the Night Springs expansion is 3 separate stories following 3 different characters on 3 different goals in, I don't know if they're different worlds, different universes. One of them kind of plays with a multiverse concept. But in the first one, you play as Rose, the waitress from the diner, who is, you know, a super fan of Alan Wake. And you're basically playing a fan fiction of hers where she needs to save him. That's the best way to describe it. Honestly, it has one of the best jokes I've seen, heard, whatever, in a video game in a while. Loved it. It had some great cheesy writing that really worked with her character and the story that they were telling. Then in the second one, you play as who I assume is supposed to be Jesse Faden from Control. And she's trying to track down her brother, which is why I assumed that. But maybe it's not, who knows, because it's Night Springs. And she is in Coffee World, and there's dark spooky guys, and she doesn't have her special control gun. But that was actually kind of an interesting story. It wasn't my favorite of them. And then last but not least, you have the third story where you play as an actor who was playing a character and in a like multiversal kind of movie game thing. And then that whole multiversal story turns out to be true. And he starts jumping to different universes. And I gotta say, I actually enjoyed that one a lot more than I was expecting to. At first, it seemed really cheesy and in kind of a cringy way, not a fun way, but man, it went on and it got way better. But let's move on to the audio. And the first thing I'm gonna say is I love the music for all 3 of these. I think it's fantastic. Whether it's the kind of campy music that fits with the first story, the spookier music for the second, and then the sci-fi vibes for the third story, I think it all worked well. I really enjoyed that. As for the voiceover work, I think it's great. I really don't have anything to add to that. I just thought it was all very well done, and it fits very well with everything going on, whether it's the Alan Wake vibes or just what they're doing in general. And then last but not least, the sound effects I think are good. I think they work very well. I don't have any complaints there either. And we'll move on to the gameplay mechanics and whatnot. And in reality, there's not a huge leap here. All of these expansions being part of Alan Wake 2, they play like Alan Wake 2. So there is some puzzle solving. You have some enemies. In the first story, you don't have to use light against the enemies, but in the second 2, you definitely have to use light to break their whole shadow shield thing. And then you shoot them. What they did do that was cool was each of the 3 characters really gets their own unique weapon. Rose gets a shotgun and a hunting rifle. Jesse McFadden gets a full auto handgun. And then the actor, well, he gets a burst fire revolver, which is an interesting choice. But overall, it works very much the same. Like I said, some puzzle solving to get into new areas and to continue the story. Just like Alan Wake 2, when you're having conversations, you can pick a few different options. But functionally, it's very much the same. It's still a third person, not always survival horror. Only one of the stories really felt survival horror. Then we'll get on to the controls, and I don't have any complaints with the controls. I think they worked well. Whether it's your movement, it's your dodging, it's your whatever, I think that all worked well. I don't have any complaints there. And let's get on to the graphics and visuals, and it's a good looking game. It looks like Alan Wake 2, which I thought was a good looking game. The first 2 stories keep with the very traditional graphics, although I will say the first story, it had like a pinkish tint over it, which again, I get it that it fits from a story element and like how the game is meant to be from that side of things, but it wasn't necessarily the prettiest thing to look at in my opinion. As for the second story, it was kind of dark, spooky, and it very much captured what you're used to from Alan Wake with the shadow creatures, etc. It's actually the third one that I think did the most unique things visually with the whole multiverse element. It starts out looking very much normal, very much what you'd expect. Then you get into a world that's like black and white. You bounce into one that's literally a comic book, one that's a text-based adventure. So that was obviously the most unique of the 3 stories, but suffice to say, I thought they all looked good and I enjoyed what they did. The enemies didn't feel the exact same for each of them. They worked similarly, but they didn't look the same, they didn't die the same. They did fight very similarly. Not a huge change up there for each of them or from Alan Wake 2, but I liked what they did. And just overall, I gotta say I was happy with the visuals. Now to get on to my complaint. My one and only complaint, although it is a kind of severe complaint. It's not something that happened to me while playing Alan Wake 2, and it's not something that has happened to me while playing anything else recently on the Xbox. But while playing the expansion, it glitched in the game, I guess, and would say that I didn't have a controller connected. Like, I would actually get the message on my screen that I need to connect a controller to play, basically. And I have looked into it. Yes, games can do that, and it's weird, but this was happening to me specifically while playing the expansion, and that did get frustrating for obvious reasons. It wasn't truly detrimental because it basically pauses the game when that popped up, but it is still, you know, not fun to deal with. So to get into the wrap up though, I actually really enjoyed this. It was a bit short, but I don't have any massive complaints with it being short. If you own Alan Wake 2, the expansion I believe is on sale currently, and I already had it because Alan Wake 2. But I liked what they did, and I think they could really honestly do another volume of this, or 2 or 3 if they wanted to, because it feels like something that they just kind of had a fun story for, and they turned it into, you know, just a minor expansion. Nothing major, doesn't really seem to impact, maybe it will, but I just thought it was a fun little thing that they added, and I think it was worth the time and effort. I really enjoyed it. So I have no problems recommending playing the expansion, and this is also the point where I say go play Alan Wake 2, because I think everyone should play Alan Wake 2. I think it was a great game. I'll put a link to my review down below, and I'll probably put it up in the corner and all that jazz. Okay, in the comments down below, why don't you tell me, are you excited for what Remedy is making next? Because they're one of those devs that I'm pretty much always excited to see what they're gonna do next. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one. Also, if you're part of the task force, there is a bit of an Easter egg in the thumbnail.